Driven Guitars. My name is Chris. Behind the camera is Matt, as always, and we're back with another 3,000-year-old guitar build, and we're finally ready to get this neck actually fitted to the body. In the last episode, it's been a while, so I don't really remember what we did in the last episode, but I know that we bound the fretboard. That much I do remember, so I took the tape off of that this morning. It's looking good. The gut reaction for me always is to just, oh, now I can glue the fretboard on. Right before I get ready to glue it on, I always remember, crap, I have to cut the mortise and tenon first. And there's more to cutting the mortise and tenon than just that process. It also is the very important process of what's called setting the neck, which is the process of getting the neck angle correct in this direction as well as in this direction, so that when we finally do kind of put the strings on this guitar, that everything lines up geometrically correct. So that's what we're gonna do in this video. Okay, in order to facilitate the mortise and tenon cutting on the guitar, there's two ways, there's actually many ways to go about doing this. The way that I did it for years was this homemade acrylic jig using double-sided tape, and it was sketch fest. It kind of, the results were not reliable, to say the least. So about a year ago, Matt and I picked up this mortise and tenon jig from Elevate Lutherie, and it is absolutely amazing. It's one of those tools that I should have bought years ago and just kind of held off on, and now it's like I'll never live without this thing. It costs about $230, which if you do this recreationally might seem kind of expensive, but if you do more than a guitar a year, buy this thing and never look back. As you can see, it's kind of an all-in-one kind of a deal here. We've got, wait for it, the mortise side. Yes, the mortise is cut on this side, which is going to fit on the body and allow us to cut that part out. And then this is the tenon side. And then you put a router, either a handheld router on the top, or in our case, we're gonna use a router table. And this side cuts the neck. And then loosening these screws here, we can actually slide this back and forth to adjust the size of the mortise and tenon. And it guarantees that both the mortise and tenon are gonna match in size as well. The other thing that's really cool is this whole section here angles to match the angle of the neck. So in our case, we have about, what is it? Either you want to use, 88.5 degrees, or I do a 1.5 degree kickback on my necks. So we can actually set this thing on here and it matches that angle absolutely perfectly on here. The other cool thing that it does, just to give you the quick and dirty of it, is you can use this as a center line alignment. And you also have a hole here, which allows you, which I can't find, but there's an alignment pin that I can sit inside of here that will line up perfectly with my truss rod channel, that guarantees that when I clamp this onto here, that everything is lined up perfectly. So it really does kind of take all the guesswork out of cutting your mortise and tenon. And if you've ever tried to cut a mortise and tenon and slipped with your router and you ruined the whole neck, you know that buying this one time is totally worth it. Before I clamp the neck to the mortise and tenon jig, I did want to show you guys a little trick that I use so that I know how deep to cut the mortise and tenon. I'm going to use the StewMac fret gauge for this guitar, set to the scale length that this guitar is actually going to be at. Set it on here to where the nut is going to go, where the headstock angle breaks, which is right there. And then I'm going to come down here and mark it at the 14th fret, and that's how deep my tenon's gonna go, because on this guitar the body and the neck are going to join at the 14th fret. So I almost forgot to do that before I clamped it on, and that's gonna tell me how deep I want to set my mortise and tenon jig to. So now I can get this bad boy clamped on here, which is just a process of getting it lined up perfectly on the center and clamping it in place. It's super easy. That's basically it. I'm just gonna use 2 F-clamps just to hold it in place. And here's the cool thing. Yeah, so you can see how this guy is our bearing is gonna ride right along here. So when we're done, this underneath this is gonna be the wood is not gonna be cut, and then we're gonna remove all the material around here. And then it'll be the opposite over here when we cut the body. So yeah, so what I need to do now is I'm gonna raise up my router that I have set up with hopefully the right bit right now. And you do not need a router lift and a router table to do this. You can do all of this with a handheld router. This is just a little bit easier. I've been, up until two guitars ago, I did it all by hand that way. I recommend this way better. Cool. All right, so I've got it set. All I need to do is make sure that it's high enough that the bearing on the bottom of the router is touching along the guide. So you can see that it is just high enough to be touching the metal of the guide. And then, see, if I put it here, it's going to just now begin taking off material. The important lesson here for you if you're just getting into woodworking or you're just getting into guitar building, don't go full depth the first cut. Just don't do it. You're going to end up blowing out wood everywhere, and you're going to take chunks of material out, and you're going to ruin the whole thing. So just nibble at it. Take little bits. 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, kind of in that department. That's how much material you want to remove per time. So we'll fire this thing up, and I'll get my first cut going, and then we're going to continue to set that depth deeper and deeper until we hit the correct depth on this thing. So I'm going to get my ears on, and we'll let it rip. Did end up having to switch out bits just because I don't have the right bits to do it all in one cut. But super stoked with how she came out. You can see how good it looks, right? She's looking right.
Absolutely.
So obviously these little spots might look a little weird. This is where the carbon fiber inserts on my neck extend. So this is just like epoxy left over from there. You will notice that I did go deeper just along the inside edge of the tenon there, and I'm going to explain to you guys why I did that here towards the end of this video, but it has to do with fitting the neck a little bit easier. So I'm probably about 1.5 millimeters, 1/16 of an inch, 32nd of an inch deeper in that little area. So that's done. Now what we got to do is switch this thing out so that it'll cut the body of the guitar, and I just need a screwdriver. That's all I need. I'll be right back. Okay, so the way that this guy works, as you saw earlier, is this whole center section here just comes off with these Phillips screws. Who's Philip? And then all we do is we move it over here to the end and screw it back in, and then set it up once again for the same exact angle on the body. And I'll show you here in just a split second how that works. Just that quick. So now what you can do with this, I almost put it on completely wrong. All right, so as you can see, wait a second. There it is. There, okay. That's where this goes. So by moving this guy over here, I'm going to be able to now attach this to the soundboard of the guitar and then cut. No. So now we can attach this to the guitar in the right way so that we can actually cut out the mortise on the top of the guitar. But all we need to do is adjust the angle from here to here to match the angle from here to here, which is just it's all very scientific. I like to keep it just a little bit loose so that I can just press on it and get that angle exactly where I want it, and then I'll finish tightening it down with the screwdriver. Okay, so now that we got the angle set, you can see the next step is going to be getting this clamped onto the guitar perfectly centered, not necessarily with the seam that you see right there, because that seam is where the two side pieces join. What is super important is that it actually joins with the center seam of where the two pieces of the top join, which you can't see here because I just did too good of a job. Right. But so I'll actually have to get my black light because I use that LMI wood glue, which has an additive into it so that I can see the glue joint a little bit better. I'll find that and then get this thing perfectly lined up with that center joint. And then the best way for me to go about doing this is to put clamps on it in this area. And then we can do the exact same thing that we did with the neck. Once again, just put to the body this time. So let me fiddle around with this and get this thing lined up. Okay, so we got it clamped on. Looks really nice. And we're gonna do it right here on the router table. Once again, you could clamp up the guitar body in a vise or use a vacuum clamp and then ride your router on top of here if you so like. But we do have the router table, so I'm gonna set that up. And it's gonna be exactly like our other setup. It's just so nice that it holds it. Honestly, if I need to, I've got a place that I can hold onto the guitar. I can hold it here and know that it's not gonna rock. This jig is the stuff. I'm telling you, it's just the jam. Okay, got that. I keep getting them mixed up. the mortise has now been cut on the body, so I can pull this off. And we're doing this live on camera. I should be able to fit the neck right on here, and it's all going to fit really, really nicely because that's just how this jig works. Getting jiggy with it. Nah.
Nope. Hey, has anyone checked in on Will Smith lately? I wonder what he's doing.
I wonder what he's been up to.
Yeah.
Beautiful, right?
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful. All right, so, and we got more to go here, but oh, look at that. You just love to see it, ladies and gentlemen. You just love, and look, it's a tight fit. Unlike a dovetail, mortise and tenons are not like that's the friction is not what holds it together, but it is nice to know that it does hold it very nicely like that. So that does get our neck fitted to this guitar. Well, no, that does get our mortise and tenon joint cut, but it definitely still leaves off the fitting of the neck. So we have a ways to go to get to the point where we can actually add our nuts and bolts to this and get it all kind of cinched together permanently. So in the next episode, because that is a lengthy process, we are going to go through the process of fitting this neck correctly, getting all the angles dialed in. But I think that'll do it for this one. We're going to put links to that mortise and tenon jig down below. Make sure you guys support Elevate Luthery. The company is awesome. They make a bunch of different jigs, and they just really all kick butt. So yeah, we'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks, guys.